Little girl promised, I'll find you in every lifetime. The vampire king waited through 7 reincarnations. The moon hung low over the ancient forest, spilling silver light across the twisted branches and the damp, moss-covered ground. Shadows stretched like silent hands, reaching across the narrow paths. The air was thick with the scent of earth and the faint whisper of magic. It was a place where few dared to wander, for old tales told of spirits, lost kings, and creatures that moved unseen beneath the moonlight. Yet, a young girl named Alara moved through the forest with quiet determination. She was no more than 10, small and fragile-looking, yet her amber eyes shone with a courage that did not belong to someone so young. She clutched a little bundle of herbs, weaving her way carefully through the roots and rocks, following a path only she seemed to know. Her village often warned her about the forest. "Stay away, Alara," the elders said. "The forest takes what it wants and never gives it back." But she did not listen. She had to reach the glade where the oldest trees grew, a place said to hold secrets older than the kingdom itself. Today, her curiosity outweighed her fear. As she reached the glade, a strange stillness filled the air. Even the wind seemed to hold its breath. Then she saw him. He was lying near a crystal-clear pool, pale as moonlight itself, yet his presence was both frightening and mesmerizing. His hair was black as a raven's wing, and his eyes glimmered with a golden light that seemed to pierce through her very soul. His clothes, though torn and dusty, hinted at nobility, something royal and ancient. Alara froze. There was something about him that made the hairs on her arms stand on end. Yet she felt no immediate danger. Instead, a strange warmth of empathy pulled at her heart. "Are you hurt?" she asked, her voice barely above a whisper. The figure's head lifted slightly, his golden eyes locking with hers. For a moment she felt as though the world had stopped. Then he spoke, his voice low, melodic, almost like a song carried on the wind. "I cannot stay," he said, "but you should not be here." "I'm not afraid," Alara replied softly. She stepped closer, her small hand clutching the bundle of herbs. I want to help." He studied her, the tension in his body easing ever so slightly. There was something fragile and honest in her eyes, something that reminded him of a time he could not forget, a time before the curse, before the centuries of loneliness. "You remind me of someone," he said almost to himself, his gaze distant. "Long ago I lost her." Alara tilted her head. "Who did you lose?" He did not answer, but his hand brushed against the ground, picking up a leaf and letting it float away on the breeze. His fingers were long and elegant, yet the faint tremor in them betrayed centuries of pain. Alara approached slowly, kneeling beside him. "I may be small," she said, "but I can help. Please let me." For a moment he simply looked at her. The wind whispered through the trees and the forest seemed to lean in, listening. Then in a voice barely audible he said, "If you stay, you may never leave." "I don't care," Alara said firmly. She met his gaze with unwavering courage. "I'll stay, I promise." Something in him stirred, a memory, a spark of warmth that had been buried for centuries. He reached out, and for the first time in a long while, his touch was gentle, guiding her hand to the wound on his side. It was deep, dark, and pulsing with a strange energy. Alara's fingers trembled as she pressed the bundle of herbs to the wound. To her amazement, the herbs glowed faintly, the light spreading across his skin. He gasped, and a warmth began to return to his pallid face. "You can see the magic," he murmured. "Not many can." "It doesn't scare me," Alara said simply. She did not understand it fully, but she could feel the life in him, the sorrow and loneliness that had clung to him for centuries. And she did not care about the danger. For the first time in many lifetimes, he smiled, a sad, almost broken smile. "You are brave," he said, "and kind. I have waited so long to meet someone like you." Alara's small hand rested on his chest. "Who are you?" she asked softly. "I am Kale," he replied, his voice almost a whisper, as though saying the name aloud would bring back memories he was not ready to face. I am a king of a world you cannot yet imagine. Alara tilted her head. Then I will imagine it for you. I will imagine it until you are not alone. Kale's golden eyes glistened, the weight of centuries pressing upon him. He had watched kingdoms rise and fall, friends and enemies die, and yet nothing had prepared him for the small, fierce human who had just offered him hope. You cannot leave, she said, sensing the pull that was already dragging him back into the shadows. I must, he said, his voice breaking slightly. There are forces, dark forces, that seek me. If you stay, you may be harmed. Alara shook her head. Then I will follow, no matter what. A long silence fell between them, filled only by the rustle of leaves and the distant howl of a wolf. Then, slowly, Kale reached into his cloak and pulled out a small pendant. It was silver, shaped like a crescent moon, with a faint, warm glow in its center. This is a part of me, he said. Keep it. It will protect you, and perhaps one day it will lead us back to each other. Alara took it carefully, her fingers brushing his. She felt a strange electricity pass between them, a connection that seemed older than the world itself. I promise, she whispered, I'll find you in every lifetime. No matter where or when, I will always come back. Kale's eyes softened, a rare emotion passing through them, hope, longing, and something close to relief. Then I will wait, he said. I will wait through centuries, through lifetimes, until we meet again. Before Alara could ask more, the forest shifted. Shadows lengthened unnaturally and the air grew colder. Kale's expression darkened. I must go, he said. You must not follow. For your safety, stay hidden and remember the promise. Alara clutched the pendant tightly. I will, she said firmly. I will never forget. With a last, lingering look, Kale vanished into the forest, leaving behind only a faint shimmer of golden light that faded into the night. Alara stood alone, her heart pounding, her mind swirling with wonder, fear, and a strange certainty that she had just touched something eternal. She did not move immediately. She could still feel his presence lingering, a shadow of warmth in the moonlit glade. The trees whispered around her, and she thought she heard a voice carried on the wind, almost like a promise. You will find me. Alara hugged herself, shivering, yet smiling. She had made a vow, and she would keep it. She did not know how, or when, or in what form, but she would find him again. She knew it in her bones. That night, as she returned home through the darkened forest, the silver pendant pulsed faintly against her chest. Every rustle of the leaves, every whisper of the wind, seemed to remind her of Kale, the mysterious king who had trusted her with his secret, his pain, and his hope. Little did she know that her promise had awakened something ancient. Far beyond the forest, hidden in shadows older than kingdoms, eyes opened, watching, waiting. A presence stirred as if the forest itself had answered her vow, and it was not alone. Alara reached the edge of the village, glancing back at the darkened trees. She could not see him, yet she could feel him, somewhere, always just beyond the veil of the ordinary world. She smiled, a mixture of fear and determination filling her small heart. I'll find you, she whispered again, in every lifetime, no matter what. And somewhere in the silent forest, Kale's golden eyes shone faintly, unseen but aware. The wait had begun. The wind carried the echo of a promise into the night, and the first threads of fate began to weave their pattern, drawing Alara and Kale together across time and space, toward a destiny that would defy centuries, kingdoms, and the shadows that lurked in the corners of the world. And the forest whispered back, cliffhanger. As Alara closed her eyes that night, a shadow flickered at the edge of her room. She sensed a presence, faint yet undeniable. Someone was watching her, but when she looked, no one was there. Only the pendant glowed softly against her chest. The wait had begun, and neither time nor death could break the bond now forged. Centuries passed, and the world changed, as all worlds do. Kingdoms rose and fell, forests grew wilder, rivers shifted, and the whispers of magic wove through the earth, unnoticed by most. But some things did not change. Some promises, like silver threads, stretched through time, refusing to break. Alara's small hand had once touched the silver pendant, the token of a vow made in a moonlit forest. Kale, the vampire king, had vanished into the shadows, leaving her with the weight of a promise she did not yet understand. But fate is patient, and fate does not forget. The first rebirth, the first lifetime after the forest was simple. Alara was reborn in a quiet village far from the cursed forest. She was known as Leora, a girl with amber eyes that no one in her village could explain. From her earliest memory, she felt a pull toward something unseen, a longing she could not name. Even as a child, Leora often dreamed of a golden-eyed man who spoke in soft whispers and walked beneath ancient trees. In her dreams, he was always waiting, watching over her, and yet always just out of reach. She would wake with the taste of tears and the ache of memories she could not place. At the same time, Kale endured. The curse that bound him to the world had not lessened. It had grown heavier with each passing century. He wandered the lands under different guises, sometimes a scholar, sometimes a wanderer, always unseen, always alone. But every heartbeat, every breath was tied to the girl's soul. Every life she lived, he felt the pull, sensing her existence like a faint light flickering in the distance. And with every life he waited. The scholar. In one life she was Leora, a scholar in a great city of spires and lanterns. She pored over books and scrolls, learning languages and histories, yet always felt incomplete. Her mind remembered fragments of a past she could not name, a silver pendant, a forest, a golden-eyed man. One evening, while walking through the library's shadowed hall, she noticed a man standing among the stacks. He moved with effortless grace, tall and elegant, with golden eyes that seemed to pierce her very soul. Leora froze. Her heart raced and a strange warmth spread through her chest, but before she could speak, he disappeared. A faint whisper lingered in the air. "I am waiting." Leora's hands trembled. She had no name to place to the feeling that surged through her. Yet the pull toward him grew stronger, a thread of longing connecting their souls across time. The princess. In the next lifetime, she was born as Alina, a princess of a kingdom shadowed by war and magic. From the first day she could walk, she felt the weight of expectation and a longing for something more. Though surrounded by luxury and power, she felt incomplete, as though a part of her soul was missing. Kale, in this era, walked as a nobleman of the realm, his golden eyes hidden beneath a mask in crowded courts and candle-lit halls. He watched the princess, sensing the flicker of a familiar soul. Each time their eyes met across the throne room, he felt centuries of love, pain, and missed moments, yet neither could bridge the distance fully. Alina often wandered the palace gardens at night, drawn by the moonlight. On one such night she glimpsed him standing in the shadows, and for a heartbeat she felt recognition, a soul-deep knowing. But before she could reach him, he vanished into the night, leaving only the faint memory of warmth and longing. The healer, another life, another era. She was Myra, a healer in a village struck by disease. Her amber eyes shone with empathy, drawing people to her. Yet Myra carried a hollow ache, as though her soul remembered love lost. Kale, wandering as a lone protector, felt the pull of her soul more strongly than ever. He saved her from dangers she did not know were coming. A falling tree, a river in flood, a wolf trapped in the forest. Each time he intervened, Myra sensed his presence, though she never saw him clearly. At night, she dreamt of a silver pendant glowing faintly on her chest, and a golden-eyed man whispering promises she could not fully understand. The dreams were both comforting and tormenting. She awoke with tears, and the ache of centuries-old longing pressed upon her heart. The rogue in yet another life, she was Selene, a rogue who roamed city rooftops and shadowed alleys. Life had hardened her, yet inside, a spark of something eternal flickered. She carried no memory of her past, yet she felt drawn to abandoned places, forests, and high towers. Kale, older, wiser, but still bound by the curse, watched her from the rooftops and shadows. He approached her at night, leaving gifts, small protections, a cloak against the cold, a vial of water in the desert heat, a note of encouragement left under a stone. Each time she found these gifts, she felt a strange sense of being seen and protected by someone she had never met. The warrior another reincarnation brought her as Arya, a young warrior of the northern lands, her heart fierce, her body strong, her spirit unyielding. Yet her soul still carried the same ache. Every life brought her closer to understanding, yet farther from knowing fully. Kale came to her in the guise of a mysterious mentor. He taught her to fight, to survive, and to protect herself. His golden eyes always lingered on her, holding centuries of love and patience. He longed to tell her the truth, to remove the veil of mystery, but the curse would not allow it. In battle, he saved her countless times, sometimes at great risk to himself. Each act left them bound in unspoken understanding, their connection deepening with every life. The final rebirth before destiny in her seventh life, she was born as Alara again, though not in the forest of her very first life. This time she was a young queen, her heart hardened by betrayal and the loss of those she loved. She ruled with intelligence and courage, but a part of her soul remained empty, yearning for something she could not name. Kale, bound by the same curse, watched from the shadows as always. Centuries of waiting had worn him, yet hope remained. He observed her from the edges of courts, forests, and corridors, a silent guardian, always just out of reach. Alara often dreamed of the forest, the pendant, and the golden-eyed man. She would wake with the sensation of being watched, yet whenever she turned, there was no one. Only the echo of a promise lingered in the air. I will wait for you through time, through every life. The pull between them grew stronger, as though fate itself was drawing their souls together. And finally, the threads of their past lives began to weave into the present. The growing tension each life had left Alara with a shadow of longing, an emptiness she could not name. She had glimpsed fragments of Kale in dreams, in strange feelings of déjà vu, in moments when her heart skipped as though remembering something it should not. Kale, burdened by centuries of waiting and watching, faced his own inner battle. He could not tell her the truth, could not risk revealing himself too soon, yet every heartbeat reminded him that she was always near, that she was always his. The world, too, seemed to respond. Forests whispered her name. Rivers reflected golden eyes in their waters. Shadows shifted as though alive. Something dark and unseen stirred, drawn to the bond between their souls. Danger would come before they could be fully reunited. The moment before reunion. One evening, as the sun set behind the mountains, casting the kingdom in a blood-orange glow, Alara wandered the palace gardens. She felt drawn to a shadowed corridor she had never noticed before. The hairs on her arms rose. Her heart beat faster, and then she saw him. A masked figure stood beneath the arched gate, tall and imposing. His movements were graceful, almost supernatural. His golden eyes shone beneath the mask, and for a heartbeat, Alara felt her soul recognize him. 1,000 memories, lifetimes of longing, sacrifice, and near misses rushed through her mind like waves. She felt warmth, fear, hope, and despair all at once. Kale, equally aware, held his breath. He had watched her for centuries, waited for this exact moment, yet knew he could not approach fully, not yet. Forces beyond his control, ancient and dark, lurked in the shadows, waiting to strike. Yet fate had drawn them close, closer than ever before. Cliffhanger, Alara stepped forward, her heart aching with recognition and longing. Her hand reached toward him, almost trembling with hope. But before they could touch, the shadows around the palace stirred violently, and a cold wind swept through the gardens. Kale tensed, golden eyes narrowing. Danger had arrived, and the bond that had endured 7 lifetimes would be tested in ways neither of them could yet imagine. The night sky was dark, pierced only by the pale silver of the moon and the distant flicker of stars. In the royal gardens, The air was thick with the scent of jasmine and damp earth. The soft sound of water from the fountain echoed like a heartbeat through the silence. Alara moved cautiously along the stone paths, her eyes fixed on the masked figure beneath the arched gate. Every fiber of her being recognized him, even though she could not name the feeling. Her heart thudded painfully, her chest tight with anticipation. She had seen glimpses of him in her dreams, felt him in moments of déjà vu, but never so close, never so real. Kale stood perfectly still, his golden eyes shining beneath the mask. He had watched her through centuries, waited for this moment through countless reincarnations. And now, here she was, closer than he had ever dared hope. Yet the weight of his curse pressed down on him like iron. He could not reach for her fully, could not speak the truth of who he was, or risk the danger that now approached. The shadows in the garden began to move. The air grew colder, as though the night itself was warning them. Kale's senses sharpened. The dark forces that had stalked him for centuries were near. He could feel their hunger, their intent to destroy anything that interfered with their power. And she, the girl who had promised to find him across lifetimes, was perilously close. "Alara," he whispered softly, though she could not hear him. His voice carried only in the air between them, filled with longing with the weight of centuries. Alara's eyes searched his face beneath the mask. Something in her chest ached. She felt a deep, inexplicable familiarity, as though a part of her soul remembered him perfectly. "Who are you?" she asked, her voice trembling though she tried to steady it. Kale stepped forward slowly, carefully, his eyes never leaving hers. The world seemed to slow around them. The shadows of the trees stretched and twisted, but their presence did not frighten him, not when she was near. Yet he could not tell her everything. Not yet. "I am someone who has waited a very long time for you," he said, each word heavy with centuries of longing. Alara's hand reached toward him instinctively, but a sudden rustle from the darkened hedges made her pause. Kale stiffened. He had anticipated this. The enemies that haunted him through the centuries had found them at last. From the shadows, shapes moved like smoke, twisting and crawling toward the light of the garden. Dark magic flickered in the air, shadows within shadows, as though the night itself was alive. Kale stepped protectively in front of Alara, his expression hardening. "You cannot touch her," he growled, his golden eyes blazing. His voice carried a power that made the air hum, and even the shadows seemed to recoil. Alara felt a surge of fear, but also a strange courage. She did not understand why her heart trusted him, why she was drawn to him, yet she felt safer with him than she had in all her years of life. One of the shadowy figures lunged at them, and Kale moved with impossible speed. The movement was a blur. He intercepted the attacker, and in that instant, Alara realized he was not fully mortal. His strength, his speed, his presence, it was something beyond human. Yet it was the gentleness in his eyes when he looked at her that unsettled her more than his power. As the shadows fell back, Kale turned to her, his voice soft now, almost desperate. "Alara, I cannot reveal everything yet. The curse, it will take more than courage to protect us both. You must trust me." "I do," she whispered, clutching the silver pendant that had been passed to her through lifetimes. It pulsed faintly against her chest, as though resonating with the bond between them. Kale's lips twitched into the faintest smile. "Then we must endure together." The curse revealed once the immediate danger had passed. Kale led her to a secluded corner of the gardens, away from the shadows. He lowered himself to kneel in front of her, his golden eyes locking onto hers with a depth that made her knees weak. "There is something you must know," he said quietly. "A truth I have hidden for centuries because I feared it would cost you everything." Alara tilted her head, sensing the weight in his words. "I am ready," she said, though her heart quivered with a mixture of fear and hope. Kale took a deep breath. "I am bound by a curse. I cannot be with you fully unless you choose to sacrifice something of yourself." Alara's brow furrowed. "Sacrifice? What do you mean?" "Every life you have lived, every time we were apart, All of that was because of me, Kale said, his voice tight with emotion. The curse tied me to this world, forced me to wait through lifetimes to watch you grow, to protect you from shadows you could not see. But if I am ever to be free, if we are ever to be truly together, you must give up your memories of me from all previous lives. Alara gasped softly. The thought of forgetting all that had led her to him, every dream, every fragment of memory, every longing she had carried, was almost unbearable. Yet when she looked into Kale's eyes, she understood the depth of his suffering. Centuries of waiting, centuries of loneliness, all for her. Her voice trembled. "And if I do, you will finally be free." Kale nodded, the golden light in his eyes flickering with a mixture of hope and despair. "And we will be together at last. Not as shadows or memories, but as ourselves in this life, in this moment. But the choice, it is yours." Alara clutched the pendant tighter, feeling its warmth against her chest. Every heartbeat seemed to echo with the weight of the decision. She could feel the pull of her past lives, the ache of centuries-old longing. But she could also feel the man before her, real and alive, who had waited through time itself. Her lips trembled as she whispered, I will do it. For you, for us." Kale's eyes filled with tears, golden tears that reflected centuries of pain. He reached for her hand, holding it gently. "Then we begin," he said softly. The first true touch, the moment she made her choice, the world seemed to shift. The pendant on her chest flared with silver light, casting shadows that danced across the gardens. A wind swept through the trees, rustling leaves in a symphony that felt alive. Kale took her hands in his, their fingers intertwining. A warmth passed between them, a connection that went beyond time or space. Every life they had shared, every near miss, every longing, it all seemed to culminate in this moment. "Alara," Kale whispered, his voice shaking with emotion. "I have waited for you through lifetimes, and now we are together." She looked into his golden eyes, feeling the weight of centuries dissolve in the warmth of his gaze. For the first time, she did not feel the ache of loss or the pull of unfinished lives. She felt whole. And yet, the shadows that had followed him for centuries had not vanished. The battle of shadows, a sudden chill swept through the gardens. The shadows stirred, coalescing into shapes darker than night itself. The dark forces that had haunted Kale for centuries had found them, drawn by the bond that now shone so brightly between them. Kale's body tensed, his strength radiating like a shield around Alara. "Stay close to me," he ordered softly. "I will not let them touch you." Alara nodded, clutching his arm. Fear and adrenaline surged through her. She had always dreamed of being near him, but now that she was, the danger made her heart pound in ways she had never felt. The shadows lunged, swirling around them like living smoke. Kale moved with impossible speed, intercepting the attacks, his golden eyes blazing. The pendant on Alara's chest flared brightly, as if it were alive, reacting to their bond. "You promised," a shadow hissed, a voice like cracking ice. "She belongs to us, not to you." Kale growled, his teeth flashing briefly in the moonlight. "She is mine," he roared, and with a sudden surge of power he drove the shadows back, forcing them to retreat into the night. Alara watched, awe and fear mixing in her chest. She had never imagined such power, such darkness and light intertwined. And yet, as terrifying as it was, she felt a deep, unshakable trust in him. The aftermath, when the last of the shadows had fled, silence returned to the gardens. The air was heavy with the scent of earth and magic. Kale knelt beside Alara, taking her hands once more. "You are safe," he whispered, "for now, but the world is changing. Dark forces will come again, stronger, faster. We must be ready." Alara nodded, her heart still racing. She could feel the weight of their bond, the depth of their connection, and the knowledge that danger would never fully leave them. But for the first time, she did not feel alone. Kale gazed at her, his expression both tender and fierce. "I have waited for you through 7 lifetimes," he said softly. "Now I will protect you in this life in every way I can. We face what comes together." Alara felt tears slip down her cheeks, a mixture of relief, love, and awe. "Together," she whispered, "cliffhanger." Far beyond the gardens, in the cold darkness of the northern forests, eyes watched. Ancient, dark, and filled with malice, the shadows that had attacked them were only the beginning. A force older than kingdoms, older than time itself, had taken notice. And it whispered a single, chilling promise. They will not be allowed to be together. Not in this life, not ever. Alara shivered, clutching the silver pendant, unaware that their love and fate would be tested in ways they could never imagine. The bond between them had survived centuries, but the ultimate trial, the one that could destroy their souls or unite them forever, was only beginning. The first light of dawn struggled through the clouds, spilling faint gold across the palace gardens. But the air was heavy with tension. Though the shadows had retreated the night before, Kale knew that the darkness was not gone. It was only biding its time. Ancient forces, older than kingdoms, hung in the corners of the world, drawn to the bond between him and Alara. He stood in the gardens, his golden eyes scanning the horizon. Every sense was alert, every shadow a potential threat. Yet when he looked at Alara, his heart softened. She was kneeling by the fountain, clutching the silver pendant that had bound them through lifetimes. Her amber eyes, bright and determined, met his, and in them he saw centuries of longing, courage, and love. "Alara," he said softly, his voice carrying over the soft rustle of leaves. "Today the trial comes. We must face them together." She rose, her gaze steady, though her hands trembled slightly. "I am ready," she said. "We have endured lifetimes for this moment. Whatever comes, we face it as one." Kale's lips curved into a faint smile, rare and genuine. "Together," he agreed, and for the first time in centuries he felt the weight of loneliness lift, replaced by the certainty of her presence. The approach of darkness from the far edges of the garden, shadows began to gather. Not the fleeting, whispering shadows of the night before, but something more ancient. Shapes that seemed alive, twisting and flowing like smoke, yet solid in intent. Eyes glimmered in the darkness, sharp and predatory. The darkness whispered in voices older than the mountains. "She is not yours, she never was. Break the bond, destroy them both." Kale stepped in front of Alara, his form radiating power. His golden eyes glowed brighter, and his presence seemed to push the shadows back. "You will not touch her," he said, his voice low and full of command. "Not now, not ever." The shadows hissed and surged forward, striking like waves. Kale met them head-on, moving with a speed and grace that made the world blur. He struck and dodged, his hands glowing faintly as he wielded ancient power. Every move protected Alara, every breath was for her. Alara watched, heart racing, her fear mingled with awe. For centuries she had dreamed of this man, of his strength, his presence, and his love. Now, seeing it in action, she understood fully the weight of the promise she had made, and the courage it had required from him to wait for her all this time. The sacrifice of memory after hours of relentless confrontation. Kale's golden eyes met hers once more. The shadows had momentarily recoiled, giving them a brief reprieve. He took her hands gently. "It is time," he said softly. "If we are to survive, if we are to be together, you must let go of the past. Your memories of all the lives we have shared, you must release them." Alara's chest tightened. She felt centuries of longing, of missed moments, of love remembered in dreams, all pressing against her soul. But when she looked into Kale's eyes, she saw not only the man before her, but every life he had endured for her, every battle fought in shadow, every silent night of waiting. I will do it," she whispered, tears falling freely. "For you, for us, I am ready." Kale reached for the silver pendant and held it between them. The light within it flared, bright as dawn, and a gentle hum filled the air. "Focus on me," he said. "Let go of the rest. Let our souls be free." Alara closed her eyes, letting the memories flow from her like water slipping through her fingers. Forests, libraries, palaces, alleys, battlefields, Faces, voices, moments of love and loss, all faded into the light of the pendant. She felt a strange emptiness, but also a release, as though centuries of pain and longing were being lifted. When she opened her eyes, Kale was kneeling before her, holding her hands, and the glow of the pendant had softened to a warm silver. She did not remember the details of past lives, but she felt the connection, a bond deeper than memory. The final battle, the shadows were not done. From the edge of the gardens, a massive form emerged, older and darker than anything Kale had faced. Its presence twisted the air, and a sense of cold despair pressed on both of them. Kale stood tall, his golden eyes blazing. "Alara, stay behind me," he commanded, though she did not move. She had followed him through lifetimes in spirit, now she would not turn away in reality. The creature lunged. Kale moved like liquid, faster than the eye could follow, striking with precision and force. The ground trembled and magic rippled through the air. Alara watched, heart pounding, every instinct screaming both fear and trust. Then the creature turned its attention to her, sensing her bond with Kale. A dark tendril reached for her, a shadow that could devour light itself. Kale intercepted it instantly, his power flaring as he struck with a force that shook the garden. "Alara," he shouted, and in that voice she felt every lifetime of longing and protection, every ounce of strength he had carried for her. They fought together, moving as one. She dodged, he struck, she called out warnings, he countered the attacks. Every motion between them was instinctual, a perfect rhythm born of fate and connection. The silver pendant glowed, amplifying their bond, shielding them from the darkest forces. The moment of truth finally, the creature faltered. Kale's golden eyes blazed brighter than the moon, and with a roar that carried centuries of defiance, he struck a final blow. The shadow erupted into silver sparks, scattering into the night, leaving the garden quiet once more. Kale fell to his knees, breathing heavily. Alara ran to him, clutching his shoulders. "Are you okay?" she asked, her voice shaking. He looked at her, golden eyes soft now, no longer blazing with the intensity of battle but with relief and love. "I am, because you are here," he said, "because we endured. Because we chose each other even without the memories. You are my life, Alara, always." She smiled, tears in her eyes. "And you are mine, always." For a moment the world felt still, as though time itself was holding its breath. The danger had passed, the shadows had been defeated, and they were together at last. The bond eternal in the days that followed, the kingdom slowly returned to peace. The forests no longer seemed to whisper threats, the rivers shimmered gently, and the stars glimmered without foreboding. Kale walked openly by Alara's side, no longer hiding, no longer bound by the weight of centuries. They shared quiet moments in the gardens, watching the moon rise and fall, talking of ordinary things, discovering each other in the present. Though Alara no longer remembered the details of their past lives, the bond between their souls remained, deeper than memory, stronger than fate. Kale would sometimes take her hand and whisper softly, "Through lifetimes, through shadows, I have waited for you. Now we are free." Together, Alara would smile, squeezing his hand. "Together," she replied, and the word felt like magic in their mouths. The silver pendant remained on her chest, not as a memory but as a promise, a symbol of their bond, a light that could never fade. The future ahead. Though the shadows had been defeated, Kale knew the world would always carry dangers, dark forces that tested love and courage. But he also knew that, with Alara by his side, nothing could break the connection they had forged. And Alara, strong, brave, and full of love, knew that her life was richer than she could have ever imagined. She had chosen him, truly chosen him, without the weight of the past, yet bound by something eternal and unbreakable. Together they walked into the sunrise, hand in hand, ready to face whatever came next. Their souls were intertwined, no longer separated by lifetimes or shadows. Love, hope, and courage guided their path. As they reached the edge of the palace gardens, the silver pendant pulsed faintly, glowing softly in the dawn light. Somewhere beyond the horizon, the winds whispered of new beginnings. Though their trials were over, the world still held mysteries, adventures, and shadows to overcome. But Kale and Alara knew one truth above all: no darkness, no curse, no time could ever separate them again. And in that quiet morning, as the first birds sang, the Vampire King and the girl who had promised to find him across lifetimes finally stepped into eternity together.